The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Tuesdays here at Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. We will pretend that everything's going to be nice and sunny and dry. Moving forward for Big Ten baseball, a boatload of rain, over 6.5 inches in North Omaha. You saw on social media the just the amounts of water that you're dealing with at Charles Schwab Field, the dugout picks, my goodness. But, hey, Nebraska set to rock and roll tonight at 8. Pray that no inclement weather moves through the region. And 'tis that season, right? It is postseason baseball in Nebraska, which means you're going to have some hop, skips, and jumps to deal with the weather. We'll take a look at Nebraska and expectations in Omaha before the selection Monday happens with the NCAA tournament. What is a reality with college football and the NFL? We'll talk about it here. Josh Pate from Late Kick lays out some interesting stuff, and we'll talk with Bill Bender of the Sporting News, as the NFL is not budging at all with what they want to do in their Saturday window, and they're all about going head-to-head with the college football playoff triple header. So have fun with that. The good news, Elijah, for us is if they could both get along, we could have the mother of all football Saturdays, where you have not a quadruple header, but a quadruple header plus one. 3 college football, and give me a doubleheader of NFL. They don't always have to be scheduled at the same time. That's the problem.
The NCAA tournament in basketball has a really good thing going with the staggered start times. No, you can't watch 2 games at once unless you're at a sports bar in which you can.
But guess what? The staggering's beautiful. It always works out.
I love the staggering because you have one game you can be locked in on because it's fourth quarter, while the other one is in late first quarter, early second quarter. You can half pay attention to that one. By the time this game ends, this other game's just starting to get good. We're coming back from halftime or whatever it may be. I love the staggered start system, and I think you could do something really special with it with college football and NFL on a Saturday. We'll get to that eventually, obviously.
No, I mean, the staggering is the thing. Call your friends at the NCAA and say, okay, you guys have done this for years, because it's beautiful with the radio coverage and TV. When it starts to get a little ugly or it may get a little interesting, you're right on. You flip back to it, or you go to the next game, or they take coverage live back to the final 3 minutes. That's what's been so amazing about the NFL. I mean, we'll our household, right? For a while, I had direct TV, so I had this was pre-Red Zone channel, but I got to watch. I got the Sunday Ticket. I had that for a season, and that was in the era of Pete and Beast Mode, and Junior and Mama were big Seattle fans, so we get to watch Seattle games. Or when Sunday Ticket went away, we'd find an excuse to go to a bar, right, and watch there. But no, I mean it's every NFL game, dude. It feels like whether it's Atlanta, Indy, right? Just walk with me here for a second. You have fantasy football interests. You have gambling interests. You're watching to see if there's a former Husker playing in a lot of instances around here. Aside from your diehards, your Chiefs, your Vikings, your Cowboys fans, of course, your Green Bay fans, Denver fans. So you're going to watch your adopted team. But every NFL game feels like it's coming down to a field goal or a red zone stop or a fourth down play. And it's always a 3-point ball game. it's going overtime, or there's drama. There is drama built in every Sunday with more than a handful of games. On top of that, they load up incredible matchups week to week. Case in point, right? What are you going to get with that first playoff Saturday, the 21st of December? You're going to get Texans Chiefs. Who doesn't want to watch that with CJ and Mahomes? Well, you.
I don't.
Well,
give me college football playoff. Baby.
No, I love college football, but you just wonder if with this expanded playoff you're going to get compelling matchups. You need a star, Caitlin Clark. You need a star of the last championship games that were great were Bama Clemson. You had Bama Clemson fatigue, but for the most part, for years in the college football playoff, you've had a good game, and typically it was Clemson, Ohio State, and then you got a beat down in the championship game. You'll have iconic matchups. They've just not been very good games. You're going to have more teams to the party, and hopefully that means great ball games. Hopefully that you're not always going to have a great Super Bowl. You're just not, but your playoff run in the NFL has been fantastic.
And we'll hear from Josh Pate here in a second. We also have to get to the starting five and let you know who's coming up today. We'll hear from Josh Pate in a second just about how college football can win that Saturday while not beating the NFL in ratings. We'll get there here in just a second on how college football can do that. On an aside, though, one thing this conversation has sparked in me is with all the great college football we get on a Saturday and staggered start time that we'd love to see in the college football playoff, whatever. I have found a solution to how the Big Ten can get people to purchase a Peacock subscription without making people mad by putting their favorite team on Peacock, forcing them to get a subscription. How about Big Ten Red Zone? NFL Red Zone's been fantastic.
Sure.
How about we get a Big Ten Red Zone
on Peacock?
And we put it exclusively on Peacock. That's the incentive. Hey, if you're a Big Ten fan, we'll give you a whip-around Big Ten coverage on Peacock. We're going to show you all the games.
You're going to need it with the expansion.
That's what I'm saying, because there's going to be so many Big Ten games on a Saturday. You're going to have what? Once the Big Ten season's in full swing, 5 11 a.m. games. Give me 3 2:30 games,
for you.
2 primetime games.
Technically, you're talking red zone, so a scoring alert. Well, you need a camera in Iowa City. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Hey,
had to ask.
We have a punt in Iowa City, so we go out to the Hawkeyes.
No, you switch it. Look at that spiral.
Yeah. I would love to get that. I would just tune it into Peacock all day long and watch Big Ten whip around coverage, and let's see what's happening. Give me an update on all the Big Ten games so I don't have to change between 5 different channels, then I have to flip over to a different app and go watch Peacock to watch a game. Give me whip around coverage somewhere in the Big Ten. I'd love to see it in college football overall, but I understand with the different conferences and the different media rights agreements, that would make things very, very difficult. So I think we can center it in.
That would be revolutionary for the Big Ten. Our boy Pizzo anchoring Red Zone coverage, Big Ten Red Zone.
It's my idea. I'll anchor it.
Well, fine. Elijah's on a leave of absence, making much more money.
It's just Saturdays. Just Saturdays. I fly out to the Big Ten League offices in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
I don't consume any water all day for 12 hours of commercial-free coverage.
After your weekend edition duties, of course.
Give me the private jet, baby.
Yeah. Hey, dudes, can I bring my dog and can I get flown around like Herb Street? Right? We'll get done with the 7 to 9 Saturday shift, and Elijah's on a jet from Silverhawk. Hey, I'm not going to hate on you. If you can pull it off, just remember the little people.
Either I'm hosting it or I want to cut for my idea, because I think this could be revolutionary for the sport of college football.
Just make sure you're not signing the deal in Florida Gator country.
Oh, yeah. Oh, old Billy Napier. We'll get there, too.
Yeah, we'll get to Billy Napier. A lot to get to. Mitch Sherman's going to be with us from The Athletic. About 10 minutes away in hour 2, Michael Bruntz with Husker 24/7. And then extended sit-down, Bill Bender's Sporting News. We'll cover the gamut with him. May get to some NBA as well. 489-1240. To dial in, to get involved with Hail Varsity Radio. Like and subscribe, as always. Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter, at HVarsity Radio. It's where you can also watch the show, can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. The other Dave is in. He got in a little more than a half hour ago, or close to. The other Dave was first. Justin, good to have you in. Justin, Mike is here. Says, yo, ho, ho. Mike, good to have you. Michael Wright says, good afternoon. Michael, thanks for checking in. Black Hills, Brennan is here. William checks in, and he says, is that from Atlanta? Is that what I'm reading it?
Austin, Texas.
Okay, I thank you.
ATX.
Yeah, I thought it might have been a mistype. I just can't read. Write that down. But
ATL, ATX are pretty close.
Thank you for covering me. William says, I've got my Nebraska-Colorado tickets, bringing some Southern friends. Texas Tech and LSU fan. Last year we went to the LSU-Auburn game. It was great, hoping that Nebraska beats that atmosphere. I think the atmosphere is going to be blood in the water crazy. We've talked a lot about that. The other Elijah is in. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, says, afternoon, fellas. We going to get any baseball in today? I think yes is the answer. Nebraska needs to do their job. Brockett will get the nod today. Rogge, Justin is in. Eat Beef is here. Brandon, Cliff, good to have you, Cliff, as he is checking in from Florida. KG is also in. More your comments and thoughts. Eric also says, hello.
He says just tune in for the Wave in reference to a Big Ten whip around channel if you're going out to Iowa City.
I like that.
The
Wave's awesome.
From my travels around the Big Ten, the Wave is at the top of my traditions. Outside of Nebraska traditions, we're going to set those to the side. The Wave beats jump around at Wisconsin, and it's not even close. The Wave is one of the best traditions out there. I love the Wave. I'll give credit to our Hawkeye. I don't want to call them brethren. Our Hawkeye cousins, maybe. I'll give credit to them for that.
Our Big Ten brethren.
Big Ten brethren, Midwestern cousins. Can we say that?
Yeah. There are some folks that will make cousin jokes on both sides of the state line.
Mm-hmm. It's not Bama.
No.
Not Bama here.
Look at you. I like it. Let's talk a little Husker baseball here. We'll dive in with Mitch Sherman. Interested to get his thoughts. TJ Lateef gets the Elite 11 invite. We'll get some audio again from Josh Pate from Late Kick on that coexistence thought for college and NFL. But how about Nebraska's pitching? Elijah, how are you feeling here? Nebraska and their pitching staff, the team ERAs at 4.37. It's the best in the league. It's better than last year. You've got arguably the pitcher of the year with Sears. You've got McConaughey, who's been dominant for a lot of the time. And Brockett didn't have his best against Michigan State, but he's been on the arrow's been pointing upward since that no-hitter against K-State. If you're worried about one thing with Nebraska this weekend, do you worry about the bullpen? Do you worry about the offense? Or do you worry about the pitching, the starting pitching going a little sideways? And I don't think Nebraska's in a stressful moment. It's self-imposed stress. They want to perform well. They want to be playing this weekend, obviously. You're supposed to do work against Ohio State. You went 2-1 against them. I have a feeling that you're just going to need to, as good as Nebraska's pitching has been, don't make it all about them and put it all on their shoulders. Score some runs for them. Nebraska's been pretty good at scoring some runs, and when they haven't, they've had their share of 2-1 ball games. The case in point, last Friday against Michigan State, they won a tight ball game before erupting on Saturday. Check that on Friday. They won Thursday night 2-1. So Nebraska's pitching can deliver. They've got the arms, the starters to do it. You win, you're really well set up with your starting pitching. I think the offense can come alive. That's just been the inconsistency for me. That and the bullpen. I know I've asked 3 different questions, but I think the offense has got to be on point this weekend.
The offense has got to be on point. I think they will be. To me, the biggest concern going into the Big Ten tournament is the starting pitching because of the bullpen. I'm going to elaborate that on here really fast. If a starting pitcher can get you to the 7th inning or through the 7th inning, I feel really good about what Nebraska has in the bullpen. If you can give them a 2 or a 3-run lead in that moment, it's once the starter gets chased in the 4th because the standard at Nebraska, hey, if the bullpen's starting out in the 5th inning, we're going to see 6 relievers in that game. That's what the standard has been, because it's about odds. If we have 6 different relievers in the game, from what I've seen in the bullpen this year, I have seen the fact that there will be at least one of those guys will have a bad outing. If you have to turn to 2 guys in the bullpen, the odds are improving that both those guys are going to be on it. That's my concern. It's the starting pitching because of the bullpen. Like, do you following what I'm saying here? I don't think the starting pitching is what's going to...
Don't ask him to do too much in the bullpen.
Exactly. It's not the starting pitching that's going to lose you the game. It's going to be the bullpen, but the bullpen is going to be asked to do something that they do not succeed in because of that starting pitching. So it's the starting pitching that sets the bullpen up for failure. It's not that the bullpen is that horrible. It's just, if you're asking 6 guys to come in and pitch an inning of this baseball game, you're asking for trouble.
Well, Clark has been pretty good for you. What Cristo are you going to get? And he really nailed it. I mean, he was great. He was fantastic against Indiana. Do you get Indiana Cristo on an extended run here, perhaps? If you get to that point, what's the trust level like? And, what are you doing with 2 outs? What are you doing with runners in scoring position? Are you capitalizing? You're taking care of the baseball. The other part of that, too. Nebraska's not been awful at handling the baseball, but they've not been as strong as in some past years. So we'll get Mitch Sherman's thoughts on Nebraska baseball, some Husker football thoughts in college v. the NFL. It's Hail Varsity on a Tuesday, powered by Cornhead Lager.
It's that time.
Psst. Hey, Mitch. Mitchie. We're looking for you, pal.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, talking Big Red.
Unleash the fury, Mitch.
Unleash the fury!
On Hail Varsity Radio.
I think Mitch and his friends in Omaha have unleashed the sub pump. I mean, just brutal rainfall amounts. Mitch Sherman with us from The Athletic. Mitch, how we doing? Are you guys doing all right up in your neck of the woods, dude, with all the rain?
Yeah, I'm just bobbing my head up above the water right now. We're here in Omaha the week of the Big Ten Baseball Tournament, just getting everybody in the league ready for spending time in Seattle where it doesn't stop raining.
Your tone is one of just pure annoyance, and I love it. I don't know if that's us or just the weather. I'm gonna pray.
I'm not annoyed by you. No, I'm annoyed. It's late May, man. I mean, well, I'm annoyed by having to stand in my basement and make sure the water level doesn't get above my windows in my spare bedroom and start pouring over the ledge, and hoping that isn't what I'm doing at 10 o'clock tonight.
Well, been with you on that aspect you get the window well gets filled up, and you wake up to the dog freaking out, and it's Niagara Falls in the basement, and then don't be around me for a long time because it just sucks.
You can make the best out of a bad situation. I had a buddy, Corbin, who last year his basement flooded, and I got a Snapchat video of him. He had the fishing rod out, and he was casting away in his basement. It all worked out for the best. They got it all dried out, and it was fine, but that was one of the funniest Snapchats I've ever received of him in his full fishing gear casting away in his basement.
Mitch, let's turn to baseball. And 8 o'clock tonight, we saw the social media postings of the dugout. Elijah, you have gotten word they've been drained. That is wonderful. But let's check ahead to Brockett, Nebraska, and Ohio State. Mitch, how do you feel about Nebraska this weekend?
Well, this weekend, they've got to get to this weekend. It's just Tuesday. Amazingly, it's Tuesday. This is like the longest week of the year so far. But if they can make it to the weekend, then that's good, because Nebraska's pitching, I think, sets up well on the weekend and not as well in the middle of the week, as we've learned for most of April and May. They're in a good spot, Nebraska. Clearly, I think most teams, all teams in the league, with the possible exception of Illinois, would trade places with Nebraska right now, 6 days out from the Memorial Day selection show, and maybe even the Illini. I mean, they've got that big trophy with the Big Ten regular season champs written on it, but probably need to do a little something in Omaha to to keep the selection committee thinking about them and not just throwing them into a region with a national seed as a number 3. I mean, I think Illinois is in. I'm pretty certain Nebraska is in, but after that, it could be a dramatic week if they finally start playing baseball here in Omaha, because there's everybody else is just kind of fighting for their postseason lives.
Mitch, any concerns with Husker baseball playing in a midweek game in the Big Ten tournament? It's just been cursed so far this season. Any concerns there? Is it different whenever you have the top pitchers out there? And I say this tongue-in-cheek, obviously.
No, I mean, I take it serious. I answer that seriously. Yeah, I mean, not just a midweek game, but a midweek game at Charles Schwab Field. It's been a setting for nightmares with Nebraska in the midweek over the past, few years. So they're not going to have great memories of the way things went on Tuesday nights at Charles Schwab Field when they take the field tonight. But that should be the furthest thing from their mind. Nebraska's had a good year in the Big Ten, finishing second place alone in the league, and had some success against Ohio State early this season. So go out and get a W and wash that taste out of your mouth of what it felt like to play at the home of the College World Series. Should be a fun place for college baseball to be played. And I'm also a little miffed at the weather, because it's going to cut down on a good crowd tonight. And so is the delayed start. 2:00 wasn't necessarily ideal, but if they could have got this thing off at 6 with some 75-degree weather, you might have seen 8,000 or 9,000, maybe 10,000 as the week goes along. So we have to get to the weekend and get some sun and get Nebraska in a position where it's playing for a chance to win a Big Ten tournament title, and then I think the crowds will show up.
Mitch Sherman's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Mitch, of course, with The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Locked On Nebraska, part of the podcast Mitch does awesome work with. Mitch, I want to talk a little bit here about Carter Nelson and just an incredible high school career, football, basketball, track. Let's fast forward now as he gets ready for his time in Lincoln. What is his impact? His impact, and what do you foresee his role being once he gets to Lincoln? I mean, what are the possibilities for him this freshman season?
Whatever he is ready to do, Nebraska will be ready to put on his shoulders, and it's just a question of how much ground can he make up as he transitions from 8-man to 11-man football, and has to do it over this summer when you're limited with the amount of time as an incoming freshman that you can spend with your coaches. They're informal workouts. It's more conditioning and getting in shape and being under the direction of Corey Campbell and his strength staff. And of course, he'll get in with everybody else on the support side for Nebraska to get him in the best shape. But it's a limited amount of time that Carter Nelson will have once preseason camp opens and getting ready for that opener. I would expect that he's a guy they'll definitely target to play throughout the season as a true freshman. Like, no 4 games for Carter Nelson if this thing goes the way that it should, with his athletic ability, just freakish in nature, as you saw on the football field, on the basketball court, and track and field. And they'll put him at multiple spots. Now, that can be a little tricky, because not only are you trying to transition as a freshman, trying to transition to 11-man football, but you're also probably being asked to do a number of things. Not necessarily going to play like as a traditional tight end, I wouldn't think. They have Thomas Fedoni, they've got Nate Borkershire, they've got some other talented young players. I mean, Carter can do tight end things, but I think he's so talented, you just get him the ball in whatever way you can. Matt Rule's talked about giving it to him as a running back. I think they can look at what he did in high school and understand that it's against competition that really couldn't be any more different than what he's going to face this year. But I think his skill set translates because he's that good of an athlete, and you saw it when he played in some all-star games in the winter, and you see it every time he takes the field of competition in an athletic event. I think he will be able to make a difference for Nebraska if he is ready to do it, just mentally ready to do it as a true freshman this fall.
Mitch, you talked about the all-star games that we got to see Carter Nelson, and quickly, we saw him and Dylan Raiola playing together in the Polynesian Bowl. Can that legitimately benefit their connection as we gear up towards fall camp through summer conditioning? Does that week they get playing together actually mean anything to you whenever it comes to Carter's ability to get on the field and be catching passes from likely Dylan Raiola this fall?
Oh, I mean, at the beginning, it's like they've had an introduction. I think they'll be more comfortable with each other when they start when Dylan starts throwing to Carter than he would have been if that week didn't happen. But no, in the long run, I mean, the comfort level between the two of them, the chemistry, whatever success they have together where they're playing off of each other is going to come through the hours they put in Lincoln. This is just they've shaken hands. They know that both of them know the other one can play, and I think in those first few days of practice it'll probably help. But then it's going to come down to the sweat equity that they have in Lincoln, Nebraska, not in Hawaii.
Mitch, what's your reaction to TJ Lateef getting that Elite 11 nod? I know you've covered the Elite 11 before, and this is 3 quarterbacks now for Nebraska that have been able to participate. Nebraska's had Elite 11 guys before, but what does it say? What does it do for Nebraska's reputation?
Yeah, never in bunches like this. Maybe 3 over the course of 15 or 20 years, and now you've got 3 in 12 months. So that's a big difference. And with the way the quarterbacks, with the way that they make their way through college football today, who knows? They may not have 3 Elite 11 quarterbacks on the roster for all that long, but I'm sure this will allow them to then go out and have credibility with Elite 11 potential type quarterbacks in the 26 class and the 27 class. And the big thing here is they've got 2 in the 24 and 1 in the 25. And it's a reflection of the kind of offense that Marcus Satterfield and Glenn Thomas and Matt Rule want to run, a pro-style offense. You know, what we saw from Nebraska offensively last season is not the offense that they envisioned for the future, and that's represented here with this fact that Nebraska has Dylan Raiola, Danny Kaelin, and TJ Lateef, all of whom were selected among the top couple of dozen quarterbacks in their class. And not just a couple dozen quarterbacks, but really what the Elite 11 is it's a showcase of quarterbacks who throw the ball. There are good athletes there. But these are the guys, they get graded on their arms when they go to those Elite 11 combines and the regionals that then turn into invites to the finals.
It's Mitch Sherman with us here from The Athletic. Find him on Twitter at Mitch Sherman and check out his work with Locked On Nebraska as well. And Mitch, probably last thought before we get you out here, as we look ahead, December 21st, 2024, we're going to have the college football playoff going down at the same time as the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans. And Mitch, what are you going to be tuned into on that Saturday?
Oh, I know what I'll be tuned into. I'll be tuned into the college football playoff that day. That's not everybody in my household. It's good that we've got a lot of viewing possibilities. You know, I heard you guys just talking about the setup for March Madness, and this will be a day like that in December, where the plate is full with football options, and that sounds great. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll be at a college football playoff game on December 21st. You never know.
Look at Mitch, I love it.
How things are going to. It doesn't mean that Nebraska is going to be in it. You know, we're a big company that covers all college football. So, who knows what that day might bring? I would love to be out covering one of. There's a lot more. There's going to need to be a lot more manpower on the ground to handle the coverage of those games that have a big stake in who wins the national championship. So I'd like to be at a stadium on that day. If not, I'll be in front of my TV. I'm sure I'll check in on that game. And that's Stroud against Mahomes, so that's a pretty good one. Yeah. But still, college football is probably gonna run the show in my house that day, at least for most of us.
Mitch Sherman with us. Mitch, enjoy your week. Thanks for a few minutes today.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
There he is, Mitch Sherman. We'll hear from Josh Pate coming up.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel will spend time with Bill Bender, National College Football Man, sporting news here in an hour. Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7 on the way. And Montana Husker fan asks a question about Carter Nelson. Can he punt? Don't know. I wouldn't put anything past Carter Nelson, our friend Tiger Shark Diver. My God, I can't wait to see a real swing pass. And there we go.
That's what you're thinking about on May 21st, 2024? Can't wait to see a swing pass?
Brother,
of all the things to be excited for this season.
There's so many swing passes called in the last 10 years that just didn't work, aside from Mo in Boulder in 2019. Other than that, they resulted in 2 fumbles.
There were a couple to Divine in 2018 that worked all right, I think.
That's fair. But the one you think of is Maurice Washington in Colorado.
Of course. That was electric.
That was good. So we were talking Carter Nelson. Great story from your friends at Counter Read on Carter Nelson. Brandon Vogel. We'll talk to Vogues here on Thursday if he'll take our call, and he's been gracious about doing so. But it just kind of details some, and Vogues has laid it out for you if you caught part of the weekend edition, the unknowables, right? Some of the unknowns for Nebraska football. I mean, Dylan Raiola is an unknown because he hasn't played college football. Carter Nelson's an unknown. And quite honestly, there's a handful of guys that you saw glimpses of, and we think we know. Let's just talk defensively for a moment. We think we know what Lenhart is. We think we know what Van Poppel is. We think we know what Princewell is. In a number of snaps, they had not only positive impacts, they were dominant in times. And that's magnified because of what they came in. They were freshmen, for God's sake. And it's been a long time since Nebraska's had freshmen contribute at that level. And they weren't asked to do too much. They came in, did their job, and you still got Ty and Polar Bear to anchor it down. So, the year 2 jump, not only for this entire football program, but guys that are going into their sophomore year. That's exciting based on what you saw out of the gate as a freshman. To see, again, that progress, that integral progress that Rule talks about. You expect it if you're a Nebraska fan, but it's easier said than done. And Carter Nelson intrigues us all. I mean, think of the weaponry you have. If you got a guy that is as incredibly talented and athletic as he is, and he comes in and it clicks, and that's a big ask. But even you give him a small role and he kicks butt at it, that's just one more thing for a defense with your trigger man that's at a high level, that has that supporting cast. It could be really good things for Nebraska on offense, and to pair with the defense.
And you just answered a roundabout question that we got from Tiger Shark Diver in the stream. Not to be rude, but how do we know Carter Nelson is actually good? 8-man is much different.
I think Mitch put it pretty cleanly with, it is different, but dudes stick out. And I'm going to say a name that is, still frowned on by some Nebraska fans. Scott Frost played, C1 football at Wood River. And the world of college football for that time, Bill Walsh, came into Wood River and recruited him. Scott Frost was an incredible Division I football player and NFL player. And just because he played at a smaller level didn't mean he couldn't translate or transition. I think Carter can translate and transition because he's shown it on a limited basis against guys that came from bigger schools and bigger programs. And I think he'll attack it. He'll attack it with an incredible work ethic, and I think that'll be the difference.
And it comes down to something this Rural staff has emphasized a lot, the measurable athletic gifts that a player has. And Carter Nelson has those in a way. And I'm talking off the football field.
Think about track, dude.
Exactly.
He's running track against it's the same distance, the same height. It's equal footing for everybody.
It's equal footing for everybody. If you throw his ability as a football player to the side, look at Jalen Lloyd. You could say the same thing about Jalen Lloyd. His ability to run and then his ability in the triple jump, he was stacking up nationally with guys that made you go, wow. And a lot of people didn't see Jalen Lloyd as a football player. But Matt Rule and his staff did, because they saw the athletic gifts that a guy has that set him apart from a lot of other people in the country. And with Carter Nelson, it's a little different because Nebraska saw those athletic gifts, but who else did? Georgia, Notre Dame, the who's who names of college football, the teams that are at the top of the sport right now saw those same athletic gifts. Do athletic gifts translate into being a great college football player? Not necessarily. In the same way that being a great 8-man college football player or 8-man high school football player doesn't necessarily translate into being a great college football player. But when you put all the elements of Carter Nelson together, what he did at the 8-man level, the athletic gifts that he's shown in a measurable way in track and field, there's the assumption that with Matt Rule and his emphasis on development, that even if he isn't a good football player right now, you can turn him into one. What is he going to be as a freshman at Nebraska? It's a question mark. But I think based on the athletic gifts he has and Matt Rule's emphasis on development, you can look at that guy as a sophomore, junior, or senior and say, even if he isn't something in year one, he's going to be something.
He's got the goods to be.
Exactly. He's got way too many goods, way too many groceries in the trunk to not be able to make a good meal out of it. You just have to have the right cook in the kitchen. And from everything I have seen with track record at previous schools to track record with guys last year, there is a cook in the kitchen that can do something with those ingredients. Eric says it great in the
he nails
comments.
It. Absolutely. You can't coach athleticism. Everything else you can coach up. Nebraska will develop, but what are you coming in with? And that's what they've been really good in their history with doing. They see something that X player does well, they get them ready, and away they go. Let's spend 2 minutes here. It's been the national story. We'll talk a little more with Bill Bender on it. Jordan Rashada, the NIL blow-up. This is what it says to me. You've got a coach in Billy Napier that's fighting for his life, and you say what you got to say to get your quarterback, and not only get your quarterback, but you flip him from Miami, hated rival in Florida, and it just goes sideways. And you got Rashada, who was shaking down Miami for $9.5 million promised by the Canes, got a bigger and better offer for $13.85 million in NIL money, and then it never materialized because you had allegedly the coach saying, let's pull the trigger on it. Here's what we got you, Elijah. The collective at Florida was like, what the hell? We got to come up with $13.85 million just for one dude that's quarterback that may leave us. And the guy never enrolled at Florida because he didn't have his money. And it's just a nightmare situation. He went to Arizona State, got hurt, but the kid's got some talent. I mean, he has decided to transfer to Georgia. He's going to sit behind Carson Beck and groom and learn. I hope he has a good career. But this has just been a train wreck and a bad hit for a coach that can't take one down at Florida. We'll wind down hour one at Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time at Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Hope you're doing all right, especially our friends up in Omaha with all the rainfall. Big Red Baseball coming up at 8, first pitch. Again, assuming we don't get any more naughtiness from Mother Nature. I
don't like that laugh to yourself.
Well, no, I just got a text back from Junior, and Junior's like, dude, you can't wear Air Jordans. You're too old. I asked the question as we ended yesterday's show, and I was showing Elijah a pair of Air Jordans, just a low. They kind of look like Dunks. Might be in the summer sneaker market, just for some casual stuff, not to go blowing Achilles out at age 46. I won't do that. But he's just shutting me down.
He's wrong. I
get all these alerts from the Nike app, and they're like, oh, you've viewed these shoes, so here are some more. And I think there's some really cool ones.
Allow me to ask the question, Schmitty. Is your goal in wearing around Air Jordans to impress high schoolers?
My goal is to find some comfortable shoes.
That's what I'm saying. Who cares what Junior thinks? Do you like them? Are they comfortable on your feet? And do you feel good when you're wearing them? That's all that matters.
KG says, wear Air Jordans to upset the youth. Tiger Shark says, I swam from 90th and Dodge to my house downtown. Keep on trucking. Eric says, tell Junior to quit hating.
It's simple. You're not wearing these shoes for anyone but yourself. For the most part, maybe you want your wife to like them. I don't know.
No. My wife and my child both are vicious with their commentary and digs. They're insult comics, quite frankly. So it's more arrows I'll probably take. And the damn puppy will probably get a hold of one and start chewing it up the minute I get it shipped.
That's the bigger question. You want to invest in shoes of the puppy around the house, but I don't think you should be dressing to impress anybody but yourself. If you're happy in them, if you feel confident in them, that's all that really matters. And if you see a pair of shoes online, you go, I like those. I think it would look good with this outfit. Who cares what they think? Screw the haters.
Well, and Brennan says Air Jordans were around before Junior was a twinkle in your eye. Buy the damn Jordans. Thank you, Black Hills Brennan. Let's get you an update from the NDOT, and they say buckle up, hands on the wheel, eyes to focus straight ahead. The driver has one job to drive. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Do we have any time for Josh Pate? You're like, sadly, no.
We have time for the shorter second cut.
All right, shorter second cut. And again, this is about college football and the NFL. Can they coexist?
I had Klatt on the show a few months ago, and he said what I think is probably the best approach, and that is for NFL and college football to work together and have your afternoon games that then lead into college football playoff primetime games. In a normal world, that's how it should work. The NFL should appreciate college football for what they provide the NFL. On a multitude of fronts. They don't, but they should.
So we're going to get a full football Saturday here in December. It's going to be glorious. But the reality is, in case in point, if you're a Nebraska fan and a Chiefs fan, you've got Nebraska, Iowa, Black Friday. You've got Chiefs. What game is that? Chiefs, is it Chiefs Raiders? Chiefs Denver?
Saturday?
Yeah.
Texans.
So that is, okay.
Right?
No, I'm talking Black Friday.
Oh, Black Friday. I don't know.
But the Chiefs kick off at 2:00 that afternoon. So it's great and terrible. Michael Bruntz is phenomenal. He's coming up here hour 2.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We welcome in Michael Bruntz with Husker 24/7 at Michael Bruntz on Twitter. Well, have you you done your for lack of a better term, Bruntzy, the Bruntzy anti-rain chant? Have we gone that route for baseball tonight? I know 8:00 is what's slated for Nebraska, but man, we just also get all sorts of whacked out weather here in this lovely state, don't we?
Yeah, and it feels like the Big Ten tournament, like it's not a Big Ten tournament until you're kind of wondering if you're going to be getting out of the ballpark after midnight. Like it always seems like that's the Cards, and they've even they've extended it a day to try to avoid those situations, and yet here we are. So we'll see. From the looks at it didn't look great this morning, but it sounds like things are progressing at least. So maybe there's a chance of baseball.
And it's giving me the early feel of, from my baseball umpire experience, one of those youth baseball tournaments where you get rain on Friday night and then, the rain's still sticking around on Saturday morning, you're pushing games back, and then Sunday afternoon rolls around and the youth baseball team's playing a quadruple header just to finish the tournament. It's kind of the feel I'm getting early, and I hope I'm not cursing things because there's still a lot of this tournament left to go, but that's the early feel I'm getting.
Yeah, no, it's definitely got that feel to it. And it's funny, too, because, if you you look at the way the bracket's set up right now, like for Nebraska, if they would have played when they were supposed to, and you win, you wouldn't play again until Thursday, and then if you win then, you're all the way through to Saturday morning already. And, anytime you have the weather and it kind of does the youth baseball thing, it kind of negates whatever advantage you get by having won. So we'll see. I mean, it's funny. I think they're probably gonna expand the tournament next year too once you get the 4 new teams. So you might be in Omaha for like 3 weeks or something like that if you have to add more teams.
Bruntzy, what's your feel with Nebraska via Ohio State? You look back to preseason, Nebraska wasn't picked as high as they finished. I know midweeks were a struggle, but 13 out of 15 series wins is impressive. Meanwhile, Ohio State's been scuffling a while, but there's some talent on that squad. And what do you think about Nebraska's draw?
Yeah, I think it's a decent draw. I mean, you've got teams that at least Nebraska's played on their side of the ledger. Ohio State, like you said, I mean, they've struggled at times this year. I mean, they've got some guys that can play, though. And, I mean, as you guys know, I mean, you get into tournament baseball, all it takes is a guy to have a great day. Will Walsh last year against Michigan State is kind of an example of a pitcher that's just really dialed in that day, or, something weird happens and you can find yourself on the wrong end of something. But, for Nebraska, I mean, they're going to go with Brockett today or whenever they play Ohio State, whenever that ends up being. What that basically allows them to do is it gets Sears on a week rest if he comes back on Thursday, and then you have McConaughey behind that. So Nebraska actually kind of has a chance to line things up pretty well if they can get rolling with a couple wins. And there's such an advantage to winning the first 2 games that you kind of need to be ready to go. But we've seen in this tournament almost every year somebody that's a lower seed makes it through the field and ends up in the championship. So you've only had two teams go wire to wire as a 1 seed since Nebraska's been in the Big Ten. So you kind of have to go in expecting chaos.
And with this Ohio State team specifically, a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde at times this year. I mean, they've beaten Oklahoma, who's probably going to be a regional host this season. They also have lost to Grand Canyon University, who Nebraska took care of, I don't want to say with ease, but pretty well early in this season. They have put up 26 runs, but they've also allowed 15 plus at times this year. They've lost to Wright State. It just never feels like you know what you're going to expect when this Ohio State team comes out of the dugout.
Yeah, my sense is it's still a pretty young team, and you kind of get the peaks and valleys a little bit more that way. And Nebraska saw Ohio State earlier this year, and that was when Sears, through the 2-hit complete game shutout on Friday, Nebraska ended up dropping one of those games in that series too. So, they're a team that was plenty familiar with Nebraska, and if you're Nebraska, you just kind of need to come out, get some early momentum, and just play clean baseball. I mean, I think Nebraska has the type of team that they pitch it well, they defend it relatively well. It's just a matter of whether or not you can get the bats clicking in key situations, I think, to kind of carry you. So, Ohio State, though, a team with kind of nothing to fear, that can be a dangerous thing when you get into a tournament like this.
Are there any signs that we can watch for during this Big Ten tournament that would show you the Big Ten is better than the national perception of the Big Ten? Because I feel like there's some good teams in the Big Ten this year. We've talked about with Ohio State. They've taken down some good opponents this year, but still, the Big Ten's a bit of an afterthought. Is there anything we can learn this week at the Big Ten tournament, or is that going to have to wait until regionals and potential super regionals to figure out how good the Big Ten actually was in baseball this year?
Yeah, I mean, it'll kind of depend on, selection time, how many teams you can get in. I mean, right now it's looking like it's probably a 2-bid league unless you have something, kind of weird happen and somebody gets an automatic bid. I mean, the thing with the Big Ten this year is there's kind of been, a pretty clear dividing line between like the top 6 teams and the, everybody else. And when you do that, you don't really have an elite team. I mean, Nebraska's been good RPI wise all year, but they haven't really been ranked all that much, and you haven't had that like Maryland or Indiana team that you really kind of were like, okay, this team's got a chance to make a run to Omaha potentially if things break right. But I think we'll probably have to wait a little bit on that. I'm expecting a competitive tournament, though. I mean, when you've got a team like Iowa who hits the ball relatively well, they have a potential first-round draft pick in Brody Brecht, who hasn't even been starting on Friday nights for them. I mean, they kind of have the pitching talent there where if they get playing good baseball, I wouldn't be surprised to see them hang around a lot longer than what their seed says they should.
Michael Bruntz with us, Husker 24/7 at Michael Bruntz on Twitter. Bruntsy, I want to get your take on the Nebraska baseball expectation. What should this program be? In your opinion, you've covered them a long time. You see the talent that's brought in. I think we saw some development this year, especially with Friday and Saturday night. All that being said, what do you think would please Nebraska fans?
I don't know. I mean, it's a tough question because everybody kind of in the back of their minds still has the glory years of the Dave Van Horn years in their head of a team that completely dominated and was competitive when they got to Omaha. I don't know if that's necessarily what I would say the ceiling is for this program anymore. I mean, I think this is a team that, regularly needs to be in contention for regional berths and make a little noise when they get there. I mean, I think that's probably a little bit more realistic expectation. I mean, the reality is, Nebraska does put a lot of time and attention and has a ton of fan support when it comes to baseball, but at the end of the day, I mean, you kind of are still in the neighborhood, I guess, of other Big Ten programs. I mean, you're kind of more or less the company that you keep. So that affects things. I think that there's probably some things that need to be done over at Haymarket Park to kind of help the program a little bit more in terms of upgrades, not necessarily the park itself, but team clubhouse, stuff like that hasn't been touched since Alex Gordon was here. So, what can you kind of do there? I mean, I think what people would probably be okay with is a higher level of consistency, maybe, because even going back to, when Darren Erstad was head coach, you'd have some years where you'd make a pretty strong run through the Big Ten, and then you'd kind of take a step back. I think the challenge for Nebraska is how do you find a level of consistency to where you're making the regionals, let's say 3 out of 5 years versus 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5. I think that's probably a more realistic expectation for where this program is at right now. I mean, I'm curious to see what happens when you add the West Coast teams and what that does. But, I mean, even if you look at RPI numbers this year, I mean, Nebraska's been significantly better than every one of those 4 teams. So, how much juice will they bring to the conference kind of remains to be seen.
As we look ahead in the Big Ten, do you think the West Coast teams that could join the conference could it help with Nebraska's ceiling as a baseball program moving forward? I mean, through 10 years in the Big Ten, I think it's become pretty clear that the College World Series, maybe not a pipe dream, but it's way out there. It's a tough goal to achieve in the Big Ten. Does adding some West Coast teams that do prioritize baseball change that at all for you in your own mind as you think about recruiting and improving the standing of the Big Ten as a whole?
It's a good question. I mean, it's interesting when you go back and look at when Nebraska joined the Big Ten. I mean, there was a pretty strong correlation, I think, between Nebraska being in the Big Ten and other programs kind of stepping up with a little bit more oomph behind their efforts in baseball. I mean, you saw a lot of programs renovate stadiums. You saw a little bit more money for younger head coaches that were kind of up-and-comers in the game. And I think you've kind of seen, whether or not it's been consistent, you have seen the level of play of Big Ten baseball rise since Nebraska's been in the conference. There's no question. What I'm curious to see is, Oregon's been really good of late. USC is actually kind of like the Nebraska of college baseball, where they've just been wandering in the wilderness for 20 years and haven't been able to figure things out. UCLA kind of had a down year this year. So, I think it helps. I think you open yourself up to maybe, improved RPI and things like that when you add those teams, and it kind of remains to be seen. But I think what needs to happen is there just needs to be more dedication to the sport at the conference level from the conference itself, not necessarily from the schools themselves. So I do think there's been an uptick in that in recent years.
Bruntz, we're going to go to football before we get you out. 101 days till kickoff because, of course, we're counting down. You look at the schedules, and time will tell here with what the Big Ten does with some Friday nights. But curious to get your thoughts. Do you anticipate Nebraska getting stuck with a couple of Friday nights? We know Black Friday is Nebraska, Iowa, but do you think that maybe Indiana or SC could be a Friday night affair?
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's kind of felt like the league has kind of told everybody, like, you got to kind of take your turn and be a good conference citizen. So I wouldn't be surprised if Nebraska ends up having to be a part of one. I mean, I just think that's going to be the way of life going forward with those TV windows and, trying to get as much exposure as you can. I would be surprised if Nebraska is able to avoid that. So it's not ideal. I know fans don't love it, but, I guess in today's college football world, I don't know how you kind of get around that, like whether you like it or not. College football is run by the networks, and whatever they say goes. So I would not be at all surprised if Nebraska has to kind of wear it on the chin and play another Friday night game beyond what they already have to do with Iowa.
Bruntz, rumor on the street is you're off to vacation. Do you think Dawson Merritt will have announced by the time you're back?
I don't. I think I'll return before we get word on that. Just because of the visits and whatnot, but I intend to be back for it. I think it'll be close, though. With him being down to the last two, I think we're getting closer to the finish line, which is good. You got to give Nebraska credit because they have done a hell of a job of recruiting him and his family to get back into that conversation.
What's your take with Nebraska going head to head? With the Auburns, the Alabamas? I know they're supposed to, but from an on-field performance, it's apples and oranges, at least going into year two.
Yeah, I mean, what the thing with Merritt that helps, I think, is you have proximity. I think that matters. I mean, I think, Alabama's going to look a little bit different with the new head coach. I mean, I think you have to acknowledge that probably what even has them more in that conversation is the fact that Washington was one of his first offers from Kalen DeBoer's staff. So, Nebraska's doing a good job of building relationships. I think they're selling what they do. And, I think Matt Rule really kind of drives the boat when it comes to how hard you have to recruit and how often you have to work to do that stuff. So I think Nebraska's going to be in a lot of those types of recruitments going forward, even if maybe the on-field stuff is still a little bit slow to catch up.
Bruntz, have a great trip. Appreciate you much. Thanks for a few minutes.
Anytime. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Good stuff from Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7 at Michael Bruntz on Twitter. And again, can get your interview segments you like with Hail Varsity Radio on iTunes, of course, Spotify, Google Play. The podcast platforms will just have for you audio-wise the video portion, Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Like and subscribe there. Bill Bender, Sporting News, gets us going next segment.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager, Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. Let's talk all things with Bill Bender, Sporting News at Bill Bender 92 is where you follow him on Twitter. Read him with the Sporting News. Bill, how we doing? 101 days till kickoff. What's new?
Hey, not too much, man. Thanks for having me on. Always good to talk college football. I know there's a lot going on off the field. We're in the heart of list season as usual, so I'll let you guys fire away.
No, it's all good. We will get to coach rankings. I want to get your reaction to the Jaden Rashada story and lawsuit. But you did a story a few days ago when it comes to the NFL and college football coexisting. Really good write-up. And can we just get along? Can our football love just get along with the NFL and college football, specifically in the postseason? What's your reaction here to the NFL not playing nice? At least that's how it looks from the outside.
We're just flexing, right? Like literally flexing. Well, I mean, this was one of my concerns when they expanded the playoff was, okay, well, how are we going to do a 12-team playoff? How are they going to compete with the NFL the later the season gets? And that comes from the experience of being at national championship games and getting frustrated that your stories aren't doing well, but coming to the realization that, hey, that's going up against the NFL playoffs or Week 18. You know what I mean? So I thought the NFL made a pretty strong statement that they, by putting Steelers-Ravens, which is a marquee rivalry, and Chiefs-Texans, which features the best quarterback in the game against the hottest up-and-coming quarterback. They certainly aren't playing nice that weekend.
And it's craziness, Bill, because without college football, the NFL wouldn't be the product that it is. I know the NFL is king, but you get your athletes from college football, and college football is the one that is turning these players into stars before they even make it onto your roster. They're the ones that are helping you sell tickets, but the NFL still wants to send the big middle finger to college football. But my question is there potential that this year could prove to the NFL, you know what, you don't want to go up against the college football playoff? Do you think college football can be enough of a draw on a Saturday in December, considering it's the college football playoff, for the NFL to say, you know what, we're getting more eyes on a Sunday. We don't need to go up against the college football playoff. Is there the possibility of that, or is the NFL just too big?
It'd take a lot. It would take, unbelievable matchups, and even then we might not get it. Alabama's played Notre Dame in the playoff, and the game was over by halftime. So you would need dynamic matchups and good games on top of it because, the NFL just has so many built-in advantages at that point. Not only, I just said, Patrick Mahomes playing, there's one. Is Taylor Swift in the crowd? There's two. How's my fantasy football team doing? There's three. And those aren't even things that have to do with the game sometimes. So, one of the stats I think I pointed out last week, I think college football had 2 games, regular season games, do more than 10 million last year. I think the NFL had at least 9 games with 25 million. So regular season games. And a lot of those involve the Chiefs. So it's going to be tough for the college football to play out the playoff semifinals to compete in that environment.
Well, I just wonder. I'm not saying that college football can go outdraw the NFL. I think that is an absolute pipe dream if you think that can happen. I just wonder if college football can do enough to split the viewership that the NFL says, man, we have this great Ravens-Steelers matchup, and the one earlier in the year did 4 million more viewers because it was on a Sunday and it was in America's Game of the Week time slot and everyone was tuned in, and now we lost a couple million viewers over to college football. Not enough where the NFL or the college football can overtake the NFL, just enough that the NFL can think twice and say, you know what, maybe we don't need a marquee matchup at this time.
I hope so. I thought that's what they would do too. I thought they would put I don't want to disrespect an NFL team, but you know what I mean, like an couple AFC South teams, not the Texans.
See, I'm a Broncos fan. Disrespect the Broncos all you want. Yeah. Put the Broncos there.
Like the Broncos Titans, that's fine, and nobody, maybe you can cut into that, but yeah, they put marquee teams there, and it does dampen a little bit of the excitement of the first year of this 12-team playoff. Not for me. I mean, I'm excited no matter the same. But this is another thing, and I think you guys are in line with me. As I don't do this thing. I could compare college and NFL, but I enjoy watching both. I enjoy writing about college football, no question. There are things I don't like about it, and NFL, I enjoy watching it. My favorite team's Green Bay. There are things that I don't like about the NFL, but I enjoy both of them because it's football.
It's absolute football, and you look at just the explosion of wagering as well. And, I mean, it's candy store time for some of us with we're going to look at the beer being half full, where I get college football and the NFL on the same day. Bill Bender with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. Bill Bender's Sporting News at Bill Bender 92 is where you follow him on Twitter. You know, I'm interested, Bill, with your reaction to this lawsuit. Billy Napier trying to have a breakthrough year at Florida. Jaden Rashada. We've spent a lot of time and a lot of weekdays talking NIL because it is the new world of college football. You need to be able to compete. What's your reaction to this lawsuit here, and how do you think things shake out moving forward in the world of NIL and prospective recruits?
Well, this is why the House versus NCAA case is taking front and center stage this week in a lot of ways, because we need to have guardrails against this. Are you surprised that there's a scenario where a recruit was offered $1 million to sign somewhere, and whatever that big number, $8.5 million over 4 years, and then they don't stay and they don't get that money, and now we're going to get a lawsuit? I'm surprised it took this long to get here. Because of NIL, because you want to protect these investments, you want to protect the student athletes, and you want to make sure it's just a tough water to navigate. And I think that's why the House CA case, I think we're going to move one step closer to revenue sharing. Mm-hmm. NIL will still be, big question is whether or not NIL will supplement on top of that $20 million for some of these programs. I think it will, and I think it's going to price some programs out of big-time college football, to be honest with you.
Totally agree, and that's going to be that line of demarcation, isn't it? Can you generate enough revenue? Can you be in that playoff discussion? You've got your two big power conferences, but there's other schools, Bill, that are in other, as we know it right now, Power 5 leagues that, I don't know, maybe their eyes start wondering. Maybe the expansion does happen sooner rather than later, or you just start eating other leagues. I don't know what the timeline is, but you want to be a competitive football program. That being said, you feel for some of these other programs that have some dudes that stick it out, and then, by their junior or going into their senior season, they're poached away. There's just a number you can't say no to, and an opportunity and a stage you can't say no to either, from a playoff and a draft status standpoint.
For sure. And I'm toying around with an article for next week about which teams actually, if there were a super league that was what the number should be, how many schools should it be, who's actually should be invited. And, I've kind of come up with these categories, and you mentioned a few of them. So to me, in this new environment, one, do you have the revenue to do it? There'll be 40 or so schools that you look at. Do you have the winning percentage? Is your program successful? Do you produce NFL? Here's where mine will be a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Do you have the right mix of you're producing NFL draft picks? Like any business, you want to say, hey, we sent these guys to the next level. But on top of that, what's your APR? Mm-hmm. Still got to be part of the equation here if we're actually playing college football.
Right.
So those four things, and then you throw a national championship. I'm working on a little formula here. You put those 5 things together, find the 40 best teams. It won't be the 40 teams we maybe expect. I was already looking at kind of some of the early results of what I'm putting together here. And, in that format, Boise State should be in that league. Mm-hmm. They produce graduates and they win football games. And, they've earned their way up the ladder, but anybody want to see Boise State in the Super League? Probably not.
That's tough for Boise and what they've been about.
I'd love a blue field in the Super League.
You want the blue field? I just want to go to Boise. I hear it's awesome. Go check out a playoff game. Where does Nebraska? Talk to me about blue blood, brand, and rep versus reality and the here and now, because that's two different conversations for Nebraska. We feel like the direction and the arrows going the right way under Matt Rule. Excited for year 2. A lot of the stuff that pre-Rule, Nebraska's not a program, winning percentage, or even NFL folks that's part of this 40, but the revenue, for sure, they're in the top 40.
Yeah, they're definitely in that, but the other things have to follow, Mm-hmm. And I think that's the big question. Can Matt Rule continue to build on that? They'd be right on the fringe here, if we're being honest, of that 40. And I don't think that comes as a surprise to you guys, though.
Not at all. I mean, if you just look at the numbers, it doesn't. The things I told us, I looked at the last 10 years in terms of record and draft picks and APR last year and national championships the last 25 years. So Nebraska would be right on the edge there. But, I think you should have bonus points for winning a national title in the last quarter century. Once it gets past that, then Michigan was just in that spot where we were talking about 97, but they kind of got off the snide last year. And Nebraska could do that. And if they did that, it would eliminate some of those doubts. I really like Matt Rule. I know you guys saw my coach rankings. Mm-hmm. I had him pretty high. I think he's taking those steps necessary, and there's a genuineness about him. And you have a quarterback with 5 stars that everybody's excited to see. He is got the whole state talking, and not just him, but just the way Matt Rule's going about his business with how Nebraska is practicing and developing. I mean, it's kind of back to the Osborne era, Bill, with just how they really developed players, 1 through 4, right? If we're talking depth chart, and Dylan Raiola is super good and talented, and he'll have some experience around him. Danny Kalin, also an Elite 11 kid that came in, and Harburg won you 5 ball games in kind of a makeshift offensive setup compared to what you wanted to run. A few more minutes, we're up against it. Bill Bender continues with us. Sporting news. We'll talk some more college ball. Brett Sears, your Big Ten Pitcher of the Year. Congrats to Brett.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. More time here with Bill Bender, the sporting news at Bill Bender 92, and his list of coach rankings. So Rule comes in at 40, rose 6 spots from a year ago. Nebraska has a good year. I'd assume there's a chance for him to shoot up. Some of the other coaches you have in your top 25, a guy that was on Nebraska's short list was Lance Leipold. Just incredible what he's done at KU. Kleiman also at K-State. Really fans of both of those guys. A name that I want your take on, and I know he comes in number 2 on your list, Dabo Sweetie. Your friend Paul Feinbaum was talking yesterday about that he doesn't see a real long stay remaining for Dabo. What's your reaction to that? Do you think Dabo's about ready to step away here in the next 3 to 5 years, his choice or not? Do you think it's that critical right now at Clemson?
I mean, they're still 30-10 in the last 3 years. So, no, yeah, he doesn't use the transfer portal. And that's something that has come up every time you mention Dabo. It's, he doesn't use the portal, and they've slid down the pecking order. I think it works both ways. I think they're still successful enough that he could hang around there and do it his way, which has been successful and good enough to win 2 national titles against Alabama, by the way. They beat Alabama. That's not too bad. Now, you could say, well, what have you done for me lately in this new era? And that's completely fair. So I think the big question for Dabo is, do they get that offense going? Will he actually use the portal? My feeling on that is preferable that he doesn't. But if he doesn't over the next 5 years, they're not going to be able to win big again. Mm-hmm. Not like that. I mean, they can win like they are now, win an ACC championship, maybe go to the playoff, but they won't field a team that can go out and beat the best of the best like they did to claw up to the top of the mountain.
Bill, another name for you that falls in your top 5, it's Ryan Day at number 4. There's been social media chatter, well, Ryan Day, he's getting to the end of his leash. Do you think that's the vocal minority? Do you think that's a real thing, that 3 straight losses to Michigan have started to cloud his legacy at Ohio State, and there might be some quiet chatter in the background about finding a new coach at Ohio State? I don't tend to believe, but I want to get your take on it. You're closer to the national media than I am.
I'm right in the middle of it, so it's really hard for me to give you a fair read because I'm talking to the dads at lacrosse practice would have a very different read than maybe what the national narrative should be. And to me, it's that yes, this is a big year for Ohio State. They made a ton of moves in the portal. They brought in Chip Kelly. Ryan Day has won, what is he? I think he's 55-5 not playing Michigan? And then,
that's
or
crazy.
54-5, something like that. And then it's 1-3 against Michigan. Now, depending on the people around here in Ohio, they're only looking at that 1-3, unfortunately. And that's tough because I'm not going to say it's a national championship or bust year. I would say it's a beat Michigan or it's going to get really weird around here. They haven't lost to Michigan 3 straight years since 1995-97 and 4 straight since, I believe, the 60s. So if that happens, it just puts so much weight on that game for Ohio State fans, even more than Michigan fans, by the way. I think they put so much into that game.
Bill Binder with us here from the Sporting News on Hail Varsity Radio. Find him on Twitter at BillBinder92. And Bill, one last football thought here. You let off this interview talking about list season. That's where we're at right now. One more list question for you. It comes from just a whole bunch of national media. Nebraska seems to be a trendy pick at the tail end of that top 25. Obviously, there's some substance there with Nebraska bringing in talent, Dylan Raiola being the number one guy you think of, but talent at the wide receiver position, really all over the offense. I want to get your read. Is Nebraska getting thrown in at the back end of the top 25 because, Nebraska fans will click on this article, and if they don't have the season that we want, 24, well, we weren't that wrong, we weren't that far off? Or do you think there's real substance behind that?
It was a good flyer.
Exactly.
Hey, yeah, it's a great flyer when Husker Max picks up my articles. I can say that. I watch that thing go, or Hail Varsity, all those guys. Whenever you can, there is some people that will do that. I did not rank Nebraska close just because, they're in that fascinating middle tier of the Big Ten where that's one thing I can't predict yet is how does it shake out when you have USC and Washington and Oregon and UCLA come in? What does that middle tier that second to middle tier look like? Because I do think Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Penn State are still the first tier.
Yeah.
And then you get into that second tier. Who's going to emerge from that? And I'm a little higher on Michigan than most because I think despite all the losses to the NFL and Harbaugh, I think people are just assuming that's going to go off the cliff, and I don't think that's the case.
No, we'll see. Does it go off a cliff? Does it wind off the road, or do they not win at the same level? But are they still going to beat a Penn State, or are they still going to take they take on Texas this year? There'll be plenty of helmet games. It's going to be an incredible schedule for them. Bill, I want to end with NBA. And I'm of a certain age and ilk where it was the bad boy Pistons. It was Jordan. It was Magic. It was Larry. That was my childhood and into my teens was the Showtime Lakers and Celtics, and then Jordan with the exclamation point against Utah. And then after that, I paid attention. I've enjoyed catching, and this is going to make Elijah tick because he's been a Denver fan since he could crawl. But I kind of get a kick out of Minnesota. Kyrie is a ton of fun to watch with Dallas. So you got the Western Conference Finals there. The Celtics are a machine. Indiana is fun. Are you on the NBA bandwagon? I know you pay attention to a lot of sports, but are you back on the NBA bandwagon, or did you ever leave?
Well, I would say I'm watching it casually, not hardcore. I do enjoy the young superstars, Edwards, Jokic, Luka. Obviously, it's been healthy to see that. Tatum's got a chance here with Boston. And I think this is good because the LeBron era is nearing an end. I don't know if that's a year or two, and maybe it's already over in terms of these young stars taking over this game a little bit, and I think it's healthy. I haven't watched it super close. I've been paying a little bit more attention to Minnesota because I really like Edwards and Towns.
Yeah.
I think that's a good combination. Edwards plays the game with just a passion that I know the Jordan comparisons are happening a lot with him. It's probably not fair, but when you see a wing play with the way his style, that's why those comparisons happen. He's super exciting to watch.
No, and you kind of been searching for that for a while if you're a guy that's trying to find a reason to get back into the NBA, and style makes a lot of arguments for you. Bill Bender with us here, Sporting News at Bill Bender 92. Bill, you take care. Good to get caught up and chat. We'll do it again soon. Thanks for a few minutes.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on. Take care.
Yep. Good to spend time talking some college ball with Bill Bender and the Sporting News. So the rundown for Nebraska baseball, you've got Brett Sears receiving, of course, Pitcher of the Year, first team All-Big Ten. Mason McConaughey, second team along with Tyler Stone. Case Sanderson getting a nod, and Drew Christo getting the sportsmanship, which is pretty awesome for him.
Should we note Case Anderson, both freshman team and third team?
Yeah, third team's awesome.
I think third team might be a little low for him even.
Yeah, I think he played great ball. We'll wind down a Tuesday next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, your Tuesday, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Big thanks to Bill Bender, Sporting News, Michael Bruntz with Husker 24/7 Sports, and Mitch Sherman in Hour 1. Get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Find the segment you want or the entire show. Download, like, and subscribe there. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play for the audio. The video portion, Hail Varsity YouTube. Can also catch us on different social media platforms, AM 590, Omaha's ESPN, KFOR Facebook and Twitter. And, of course, our friends out in central Nebraska, Kearney Hastings, Grand Island, ESPN Superstation with Duda in the crew, and News Talk 900 in Columbus. Some of our affiliates will have Husker Baseball coming up at 8 o'clock. I think 7:30 is when the pregame gets rolling there. What a statement, Elijah, for Nebraska baseball. You have a 2 seed, which exceeds your preseason projections, but you got a guy in Brett Sears that a year with Rob Childress, pretty impressive. Him and McConaughey both, and you just wonder if Nebraska can do a dog pile on Sunday, weather permitting, of course.
And you talk about a statement, but I think the chance to make a statement all still lies ahead of you. I know you beat the preseason expectations from the media around the Big Ten, but like with
some work now
with college baseball, especially within the Big Ten. Like the grander Big Ten media is not scrutinizing baseball like they are football and basketball. It's a what have you done for me recently when it comes to preseason projections? So great for Nebraska to go finish top 3 in the Big Ten. I think that's where you should be every single year based on the fan support and the amount of talent that you try to bring in every single year. Great. You've lived up to expectations, at least among Husker fans. Maybe you've exceeded the Big Ten media's expectations, but you've lived up to expectations from Husker fans. The chance to go make a statement is now. Like, go win a Big Ten title in Omaha. You have home field advantage. You should get that advantage, and you should be able to go make a run towards the championship. What can you go do in a regional? Maybe it's not making it to a super regional, but can you have a season similar to previous years where you gave Arkansas all they can handle? Can you give the regional host all they can handle? Can you go make a super regional, which would be awesome this year? But I think
individually they've made a good statement, though, from where the pitching staff was to where it's at right now, and you get emergence with Sears. I mean, to have a Big Ten pitcher of the year is pretty awesome.
That's awesome, yeah. And Sears deserves all the credit that he gets here, and I think he's probably going to be a pretty high draft pick as well. But your chance to make a statement as a team still lies ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
With as long as it's been since Nebraska's really made a deep run in the NCAA tournament, with Nebraska, I still believe 0 Big Ten tournament titles since they joined the Big Ten.
What's crazy is we talk expectations, and it's been damn near 20 years, 19 since you've been to the College World Series, and it's really to have 3 runs like you did in a 6-year window is incredible.
Yeah.
But that's not the norm, and it's really hard to get there. And they're working on just kind of cleaning up in the Big Ten, and it's been easier said than done.
Yeah, it's hard to do generally to be one of the 8 best teams in college baseball to make that run. It's even harder to do from the Big Ten. It's not the expectation every single year. That's cherry on top. But go make some noise in the postseason. Go earn the Big Ten a little bit of respect if you're Nebraska nationally with a postseason run. Just go do what you can. It doesn't have to be a College World Series, but do something. You can go get swept out of a regional.
We'll check in with Cedric Golden tomorrow, Evan Bland tomorrow. We'll talk at 4. Thanks.